Welcome to the Beyond Cinema studio presented by Celebs.com up here at Sundance. James, Sebastian, which way to the front line from here? You know, we were chatting a couple of seconds ago. You and I sat in similar seats with Tim sitting right there 3 years ago, before the Oscars, before all that happened. And of course that film found its way into the public conscience and was received so warmly. And here we are a few years later, and Tim's no longer with us. Making this tribute, you know, and coming back to these kind of same places, but with James and stuff, must be a kind of odd sensation for you.
Oh, it's tremendously odd. I mean, I have these old flashes of memories of, like, even very specific things, standing on a street corner, talking to him, smoking a cigarette or whatever, and then boom, you know, like, he's gone, I'm back. And I'm back, you know, without him, but with my film about him. And it's very sad. I mean, I might be maybe the only filmmakers in Park City right now who's sad that their film exists.
Right.
It's a very weird, conflicted feeling.
No, I totally get it. And James, physically similar, almost, you know, to Tim as well. You know, tall, kind of good-looking guy. I mean, I don't know how to say it in a way.
We do our best, you know.
Yeah, you know. But so,
by the way, I can hear Tim's voice saying, "You must be kidding."
did you guys know each other before this project?
By name, but not. We hadn't met. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of like James. You knew him way back at the beginning. So for you, I mean, do you look back at that time? You know, like, was it Liberia? Yeah. So it's like, do you look back at that time and have these kind of strange reminiscences of like, well, wait, what if is there a what if conversation that's ever happened in your head? What if I hadn't taken him with me? What if I hadn't said yes?
Oh, you're really putting the questions out today, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was with Tim in his first experience of combat.
Yeah.
You know, I've been working in Liberia alone for a year, and then he came in with me on a sort of third long trip in, and you know, that was his first experience of going to war.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a sort of, on the one hand, it feels like a privilege to have been there with him and to witness that and for us to have done that together. On the other hand, you know, it's part of the trajectory that ultimately killed him. You know, and I think that really the reason he went to Liberia, the reason he wanted to come with me, the reason he contacted me in the first place was that the work he'd done in Sierra Leone was about the young people's experience of war, it's how the war had affected them.
Yeah.
And he wanted to see what the cause of that had been, where it originated, and that war was carrying on in Liberia. So, you know.
Well, that work for me, so Sierra Leone, obviously showed him as an artist as well. And a lot of people didn't get to know perhaps that side of him if they only got to know him when Restrepo came out. Did you find in the course of doing this tribute to him that you found out a lot of things about him that you never knew? And if so, what?
Well, I think one of the, you know, if the film succeeds in one respect, which is to show a much wider audience his work, then by definition the film succeeds.
Right.
I mean, so, and that's one of the great things about being at Sundance with the film as well, is because it's here with Sebastian that Tim broke through into wider public consciousness. He was really well known in the industry and hugely respected,
right.
But his photographic work, you know, was widely disseminated, but it didn't have that, you know, I mean, working in Liberia did not take him down the red carpet to the Oscars.
Right.
Let's be straight about that. And actually, what the Restrepo experience and the Sundance experience and what this film can do now is show a much wider audience this incredible body of work. And I think that looking at all of his work in this very compressed period, what it's kind of shown me is just like the level to which he was really working. You know, I mean, just looking at bits of his work individually is one thing, but when you look at the canon overall, you start to see these layered nuances of where he was really going with his work, looking at how young men in war saw themselves and why they saw themselves like that.
And how unique his eye was.
Yeah, it's a unique perspective.
Yeah.
Which comes out of his own unique way of being, you know.
Yeah. Sebastian, did you ever know long-haired Tim? It's like,
I didn't know long-haired Tim. I met Tim in 2007 during my Restrepo project.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, collecting this and meeting his
Yeah.
parents and all that sort of stuff, was that the first time? Were a lot of these things
Yeah.
first times?
Yeah, but it gave me an interesting insight into him. You know, if you meet him, you know, when I met him, he was just this tall, clean-cut Brit. And I didn't realize, you know, I just didn't realize that what was lurking in his past, lurking inside him somewhere was a guy with Rasta dreads, and he
Yeah.
spent 2 years in India and smoked a certain amount of weed, and because he was so driven and straight ahead and disciplined, and I just it's a wonderful aspect of his character that I didn't really know about.
Yeah. And in terms of meeting his family and stuff like that as well,
Yeah.
to me, one of the lovely moments is him sharing his book with his mum.
Yeah.
And getting to have that experience as well. When you do a project like this, and you're saying, it is obviously you're sad to be here in that sense. How do you think, is there? I mean, do you think Libya was a fitting a place as anywhere? I know it's a weird question, but
Yeah.
it's Libya seemed to me to be not important enough a place for Tim. Is that a
You
weird
mean
thing to
for
say?
Tim to die in, or
Yeah,
for Tim to
for
go
Tim-
to?
For Tim to die in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, there is no place that's important enough to die in.
Yeah.
And that's what you realize as a war reporter. You think, God, I could get killed on this stupid hillside. And then you think, well, what hillside wouldn't bother me to get killed on? There is none. It doesn't exist. So
Right.
in some ways, it doesn't really matter. And but Tim, I mean, to take the question a little further, we were at the Oscars, and the Arab Spring was just in full boil. And we both felt very conflicted that here we are, working journalists, on the red carpet in this sort of beautiful, sumptuous world. Meanwhile, something of incredible importance and occasionally incredible dignity
Yeah.
is happening on the other side of the world. We need to be there, and we tried to get there as fast as we could. And I actually had to change my trip. We were going to go on assignment, and I couldn't. And then he went, and it killed him. But I think Tim, he cared so much. It's such a cliche, but he cared so much about humanity and about human dignity and human freedom. That was so transcendentally important to him. And so, in a weird way, Libya was about those things. And in a weird way, it was an appropriate place for him to die.
Yeah. There's that moment in the film as well where he's really questioning whether he ever wants to go to another war zone again. I'm sure you've all had those moments. How hard is it to kind of say no to that feeling that you want to be there? Like, I mean, for you, because you've got a balance of experiences as well in terms of, writing narrative fiction,
Nonfiction.
nonfiction writing, and then being turned into like a narrative feature.
Yeah.
And so you've had these kind of Hollywood moments as well. So for you, how hard is it to be pulled in one direction or the other when you've got a taste of both?
I mean, I found that I would write a book for a couple of years and then do some foreign reporting, and I went back and forth quite easily. But that ended abruptly when Tim got killed, and almost instantly. I mean, within the day, I decided never to cover another war. So that part of my life is over with.
And James, for you, is your perspective on the work you've done, is that different, having lost Tim, or is it just, did you come to terms with your work and your position and that risk a long time ago?
Well, there was a sort of I had to make a decision when I have two children. So when my children were born, there was a decision there. I spent most of, while my wife was pregnant with our first child, I think I spent 6 months of that time in Afghanistan. So that was not, the decision got made then.
Yeah.
When Tim was killed, I had a sort of diametrically opposed reaction to Sebastian's, which was not to stop, to keep going. For me personally, and there's a lot of ego in this. This is no great moral standpoint here, right? For me, it just felt to stop now. What was it all about then? why were we doing this? We knew what the risks were. We knew that this could happen, and it's happened. So it felt to me like it justified him what happened to carry on.
Right. Do you have souvenirs of him? Did either of you like take one of his cameras or keep one of his cameras, or take some sort of souvenir of Tim with you?
I'm very reluctant to go down that road. It feels a bit like collecting relics of St. Tim.
Yeah.
I have my memories, and it's enough for me.
Yeah, Sebastian.
Yeah, no, I have. I think literally nothing of this.
Yeah. Why Danny Boy over the credits?
It just, for all of us on the edit team, was emotionally an incredibly affecting song. And the way what I like about that particular version by Shane McGowan with the Popes, not the Popes, the Popes.
Yeah.
It has this sort of like, it's a very sad song, but there's a slightly triumphant sort of air to it, a sort of stumbling kind of triumphant air, and when you listen to that and seeing Tim's incredible photos of people in the struggles of their ordinary lives all around the world, it just gave the whole thing a kind of dignity that we found really, really moving.
And this adventure that you're going to take with the tribute, what's the hope for it? What's the takeaway?
Tim lived a really big life. He was very curious, very brave, and incredibly compassionate. And he really went out and engaged the world. I mean, just incredible. And the main thing I would want with this film is for people to watch this film and be inspired to try to live a life as big and as open and as honest as Tim's was.
James, for you?
For me, this is a wonderful opportunity for people to see, the extent of Tim's work. It's a great opportunity to see what came before Restrepo and to see where it was going. And I think as well, Tim was really conscious. He was a very thinking, clever person, and that mixture of intelligence and emotion is rare. And Tim really understood the nature of the dichotomy of his position. On the one hand, you've got someone who documents the worst thing that people can do to each other, and on the other hand is a man who understands the allure of war. And I think that if you want to think about how you might stop war from happening, how you might mitigate its worst excesses, you need to understand why it happens and why it is that successive generations of young men have found that a compelling and meaningful thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think his work is one of the keys that unlocks understanding to that. And if people took away from that just the understanding that war is complex and as well as visceral, it's compelling, and that needs to be understood, then that would be a huge achievement.
Well, certainly his legacy, even in the kind of moments that he had around this place, that he certainly reached a lot of people and touched a lot of people in a very, very cool, very warm and informative sort of way. So congratulations in a weird sense being back at Sundance. I'm sorry it's for this reason, but hopefully good things will come.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.